In studio to break this one down with the two-time Super Bowl champ Bryant McFadden. B-Mac, I don't know how much can be said about this game, but here's to trying. Back and forth game, stalemate at times.
Yep.
I don't want to start negative, so let's start with the Raiders. Jimmy Garoppolo, new uniform, but looked very much like the Jimmy Garoppolo we've grown to know. What'd you make of his performance?
Well, he just made the timely plays for them to be able to win this ball game, and that's who Jimmy G is when you talk about being a starting quarterback. He might not be a household name or a guy that can blow you away with his arm, but he finds ways to win ball games, and that's what we saw. A very, very, slug drag of fest, to say the least, in this matchup. But the Raiders, I mean, they made the plays they needed to make on both sides of the football. And I think this is a team that could really make things a little interesting when you look at their division and seeing what's going on with the other teams. So for me, hats off to Josh McDaniels, because if you go back to a year ago, this will be a ball game they will find a way to lose, right? Ultimately, today, they found a way to win, so that's a big-time plus.
Yeah, going up against the former team I know he had last season as well, but let's talk about head coaches here, because plenty needs to be figured out in Denver right now for the quarterback and the head coach. Sean Payton back in the fold. And I don't want to make any big proclamations here or even ask you a question to put you in a position to, but when you're talking about a personality like you have in your quarterback and a personality like you have in your head coach, how do you get those two things to work across a full season?
Well, winning makes it better, right? Execution, putting up numbers will make everything better. But I think both individuals, Sean Payton and Russell Wilson, they're trying to figure each other out so they can put forth their best effort week in and week out. We also have to remember the Denver Broncos, they were out with they were missing their top wide receiver in Jerry Jeudy. Of course, Tim Patrick is out as well. So they were kind of short-handed at the pass catching position. The thing that was the most alarming for me when you look at the penalties, Joe, I mean, the Broncos had 10 penalties for over 80 yards. You know what I mean? That's sloppy football, especially at home, playing against a divisional foe. And that could have been the deciding factor with them being on the short end of the stick.
Broncos have 6 losses, B-Mac, since the start of last season when allowing 17 points or less. You've been on great defenses, and you've been supported by great offenses in your career. But when the offense doesn't come to play, on days like those, how hard is it for a defensive group that knows that they're going to go out there and hold a team under 20?
And that's usually the defensive goals in regards to points allowed. Anything within that area of 15, 16, 17, you feel like if you're doing that, you should win ball games. That was one of our major goals and points allowed when I played in Pittsburgh. If we only allow anywhere between 15 to 16, we should win these ball games. And defensively for the Broncos, they did a pretty good job in getting the necessary stops. Offensively, we're not seeing what we expected to see even a year ago when Russell Wilson was traded to the Denver Broncos. And even today, he didn't have a horrible game, but he didn't do enough. You know what I mean? Jimmy G did enough, and because of that, they were able to win this ball game.
Broncos have lost 15 of their last 17 divisional matchups.
That's not good.
It's just not going to work. No matter what you're trying to do, no matter what your goals are, that is not a winning formula. Where does the change start? I know for Russell Wilson, it's got to be better. We want to give him time to look better. But where does this change have to start for the Broncos?
I think internally, Joe, they got to get healthy. They got to get healthier. Get Jerry Jeudy back. We saw Javonte Williams in the fold. Clearly, he's not 100%, but he's able to go. But he's not the explosive guy that we saw early on in his career. So it's going to take some time to get things rolling on that end as well. So if they can get healthy, have a full deck of cards to play with, I think we will see better execution. But it starts with number 3. And one thing we say about outstanding, prolific quarterbacks, they make everybody look better. They make the offensive line look better, the running backs, the wide receivers. We haven't really seen that so far. And I understand very, very small sample size, but if you go back to a year ago, and then, of course, with this big ball game right here, we haven't really seen Russell Wilson make the guys around him better.
It's a fair indictment or a fair assessment at this point of the season. We will not charge anyone with anything. We're going to charge Jimmy G with a W here in his debut with the Raiders. It seems to be that, and the excuse used to be, look at this defense in San Francisco. Look at the support he has in the pass catchers. If Jimmy G's able to put together a winning season this year for the Raiders, maybe be a wild card team, I don't want to get crazy, say win a division, do we have to start talking about Jimmy G a little bit differently?
No.
Okay.
I don't. But let's keep it real. This is what we expect from Jimmy Garoppolo, right? When he's healthy, he wins ball games. That's who he is as a quarterback, and that's why you have to respect his skill set. Now, in regards to playoff success, he's shown the ability to do that, but consistently at a high rate to be able to get his team to a championship. Outside of that one outlier like year for San Francisco, you know, they didn't really believe in him. That's why they went and rolled the dice and brought in Trey Lance, because he won ball games for them, but for them it wasn't enough for whatever reason. So this is who Jimmy G is, and if you look at this matchup, going into this matchup, if you had to really make a pick, I think it was safe to say you take the Raiders. You know what I mean? Because Jimmy G has shown that knack to win ball games when given the opportunity. So they're in a good place because a year ago their defense was bad, inconsistent. They got necessary stops today. I think they will find a way to get more rhythm going on. Having Jacoby Myers was huge because Devontae gets so much attention. He came up big time in the red zone with 2 big-time red zone touchdowns. So eventually Josh Jacobs will come to the party. You know, he's not in football shape. So they're in a good spot, especially not knowing exactly what this division will look like.
I'm almost positive that was a compliment. It just came out of the side of your neck.
It did.
You're not going to change the way he's talking about Jimmy G, even though Jimmy G is a winner.
He's a winner.
Thank you, as always, for weighing in on this matchup. We got plenty more coming here on HQ Postgame. Here's a look at the fantasy outcome from this 17-16 slog. Jimmy, good for 219 fantasy points. You could about pencil him in for that as well. But look at them from the fantasy standpoint. That becoming the same quarterback, Russell Wilson and Jimmy Garoppolo. Josh Jacobs held in check in this one, as was Devontae Adams in many ways.